Hey guys, what's going on? So today, following yesterday's episode from learning from Tekken, I wanted to talk about a bit of Street Fighter and what Mortal Kombat can learn from Street Fighter, what it can take away from Street Fighter. I think it's pretty obvious what I'm going to bring up. Obviously, Street Fighter was one of the first games, if not the first fighting game, that brought in the use of like a fireball war, fireballs clashing. And if you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you know how vocal I've been about the Mortal Kombat fireball struggle and how it all works in the game. I'm not a fan of it, and I think majority of people are not a fan of how fireballs work in Mortal Kombat. Just because they pass through each other, and it kind of just takes away from another layer of the game. It's really irritating, especially when you get to certain parts in your life bar. So if you've got like 5% left and they've got 10%, there's no point playing a fireball war, because as soon as they shoot a fireball, all you have to do is react and shoot one back, and because it passes through quick enough before you get to recover, you kind of lose. So it just becomes a bit silly. Like Mortal Kombat's fireball war is probably one of the stupidest things about it, and it's one of the things that I think is overlooked a lot. I've heard that Ed Boon does not like fireballs clashing. He thinks it doesn't make sense, or that's what I was told. I haven't verified that, so don't quote me on that. But I can't see his logic at all. I mean, it's the same as if two people throw a punch at each other. The punches clash, right? I mean, that's how you get counter hits. In Tekken, for example, when two moves clash, the screen sort of zooms in to indicate that happened. It's kind of a weird design choice, really, especially for a fighting game. Even Smash Brothers, something that is considered a party game a lot of the time, it has a basic mechanic like fireballs clashing. Now, I mean, Street Fighter is the pioneer of that. They started it off. They sort of perfected the fireball war, if you will. One thing that Mortal Kombat could take away from Street Fighter, I mean, there's a few things, but the major thing they could take away from Street Fighter is the fireballs. The fireball war in Street Fighter, to me, is one of the more interesting things, because you can have characters that don't have the greatest fireballs on the planet, and in the right hands with the right player, they can make a comeback. We've all seen it before. We've seen the fireball wars with Sagat and Rose. We know Sagat has some of the best fireballs in the game. In Street Fighter 4, we saw the grand finals. I think it was Bonchan versus Luffy. I can't remember how he says his name. I'm pretty sure it doesn't say it like the One Piece character. I think it's Luffy. Anyway, Luffy. We'll just call him Luffy. We saw the fireball war between Sagat and Rose, and it was really interesting because it was Luffy was showing how to use your meter against a character that is superior at shooting fireballs. So Luffy was using his reflect and his meter to EX his fireballs to get through Sagat's spamming. If I'm remembering the match correctly, Luffy did gain the advantage on the fireball war quite a bit, and it was just a really interesting way to sort of play that matchup. I mean, the matchup changes when you get up close, and I'm sure if Luffy had managed to get in, he would have been able to do a bit more damage, but he played it in a way where there was just another layer to the game. There was another world. There was like, okay, we can fight up close or we can fight up at full screen. But in Mortal Kombat, you don't really have that. And I was speaking to Foxy, and actually before I even get to that, can you just take a second to imagine what the match between Luffy and Bonchan would have been like if fireballs passed through each other? Can you imagine how much of a joke that would have looked like on the EVO Grand Stage? To every other game, it looks ridiculous. If you had fireballs passing through each other in any other game, it would look absolutely stupid. But for some reason, the Mortal Kombat community is accepting of this odd mechanic. Like, I don't really know what else to call it. It's one of the weirdest things. But I was speaking to a Foxy grandpa. Shout outs to Foxy. I've known Foxy for a very long time. And we were chatting on my status, and because I put one of my videos up on Facebook, and he saw it. Ketchup had commented on it. Me and Ketchup, again, I've been friends with Ketchup for a long time. We have a complete difference of opinions on Mortal Kombat, but he's a very respectful guy. Don't have a bad word to say about him. But Foxy jumped in, and he was basically giving his 2 cents. Now, I don't agree with what Foxy said. Part of me feels like he was trolling. Or at least trying to play devil's advocate, which is fine. But he said to me, Mortal Kombat fireball wars are about percentages. They're not about what other games are about, where other fireballs, because in all other fighting games they clash, right? Smash Brothers, King of Fighters, Fatal Fury, Street Fighter, Tekken, whatever, like they all clash. In Mortal Kombat it's a battle of percentages. And you know, I said to him that it's kind of a weird thing to say, really, because in Mortal Kombat you have some characters that have really ridiculous fireballs. For example, Cetrion. Cetrion has, let's forget all her other fireballs, forget about the Geyser and the H2O. Her rock, right? Her rock will hit you, it can hit in the air, which causes a crushing blow, also sends you full screen, and if it isn't a crushing blow it will still send you quite far, does a decent amount of damage. You've also got her ground boulder, which does, unless you flawless block it, it really does a ton of pushback, and it does a considerable amount of chip. That chip builds up real quick. Now when you add in all the other fireballs that she's got, that boulder becomes terrifying basically. Like it is a pain in the ass, and if you have not got a powerful fireball that is quick or a teleport, you're in big trouble. Now I play Noob Saibot and Baraka, or I did play Noob Saibot and Baraka when I was playing the game. Noob Saibot, I don't have as much of a problem dealing with Cetrion because he has the sickle scythe. The sickle scythe allows him to move around the screen a bit more freely, and I can also EX it or meter burn it, whatever, to put them in sort of like a like they don't really know if I'm going to meter burn it or not. It is quite punishable. You can even react to it when he teleports, but it's at least a decent mobility option. And of course I also have the teleport, which I can react with. With Baraka, that matchup is an absolute nightmare, and I think the matchup would still be really hard for him if fireballs clashed, but in the hands of someone that knows how to manage their meter and knows when to block or flawless block and then fire back, that matchup could be drastically different, because what happens in Mortal Kombat is you get a spam fest. Anyone can pick up Cetrion and start zoning, because the fireballs pass through each other, there's no real consequence to them just pressing it over and over again. Whereas if fireballs clashed, there would be a consequence to continuously doing that over and over again, because someone that is good at the fireball or good at zoning will know when to use their meter to use the extra hit point to go through the boulder, because the boulder can't be meter burned. You can't get a meter burn version of the boulder, so because it's already strong enough, I understand why. But Baraka has a meter burn version of his fireball where he shoots 2 fireballs, so that's obviously 2 hit points worth of damage. Now you only have 2 bars of meter in Mortal Kombat, however they do recover fairly quickly, the offensive meters. So if they gave you the option, if it was in the game where you could shoot fireballs at each other just the way you can in Street Fighter, that matchup would change drastically. And the person that is using Cetrion, I'm using Cetrion in this example, there's other characters, I'm not particularly picking on Cetrion even though she's a dumb character, but that Cetrion player would have to start using their head. It wouldn't just be a case of, oh, my fireball is superior so you have to come to me. It wouldn't be that case. Now it may be the case that Baraka loses that war anyway because she has 10 other ways to basically hit you with a fireball, but it would at least give the attacking player something to work with. Can you see what I'm saying? Like, there is a layer of depth that Ed Boon and his developers have deprived Mortal Kombat of. It should never be a game of percentages, because then it becomes a case of whoever has the better fireball wins. Whoever's fireball does more pushback wins. Whoever's fireball causes you to freeze so they get a full combo wins. If it was a game of percentages, or if they were going to have fireballs clashing, not clashing and passing through each other, and you wanted to have a layer of strategy to it, it'd be a case where all fireballs do the same damage and all fireballs have the same amount of hit points on them. So if you do a meter burn version, 2 come out, and then it comes down to really who is blocking at the right time and firing off. But even that in itself is stupid. Mortal Kombat, it doesn't have that. Like, some characters have incredible fireballs and are able to just spam on you basically. Another example is Cabal. He can just jump in the air and shoot his whatever that word is, his sword or whatever that is that comes down, and you can't really contest it. The only thing you can do is flawless block it and try to punish him on his way down, and if you don't flawless block it, it's very, very, very difficult to punish him. He also has the option to meter burn his landing, which makes him land even faster. And it's just it doesn't make the Cabal player think, is this a good time to jump in at this person? Because again, I play Noob Saibot, so I have a fireball that shoots directly up in my up clone. Now if I react to Cabal, what happens in Mortal Kombat is the position is now reset. Cabal can go back to jumping, and I can just take the trade and shoot another clone out. What should happen is that if the Cabal player is jumping at me and shooting a fireball directly down, and I react and I shoot an up clone, the fireball should clash. The up clone should disappear on impact with the sword that he throws, and Cabal should be put in a reset situation where he's not going to be punished for landing, and Noob Saibot's not going to be punished for doing the attack, and it will make the Cabal player probably stop and think a bit more. Do I want to be jumping or wasting meter or doing this or doing that? But we don't have that. All that happens is that I shoot the up clone, Cabal gets hit by it, he flies across the screen, I get hit by his thing, I spin about a bit, he comes back in, he does the same thing. Like, it's not, there's just no depth to it. The Mortal Kombat Fireball War could learn so much from Street Fighter. It could learn so much from it. For years of some of the most entertaining matches have come down to the Fireball War, for me anyway. I love watching like Alex Valle versus Daigo in Street Fighter 4. Just watching how masterful Daigo is at shooting fireballs, and Alex Valle realizing that even though he has the same character as him, Daigo's understanding of when to throw a fireball and when to use his meter to get the advantage and push the advantage is so advanced that he has to now find a way in. And conversely, I've seen Ryan Hart do the same thing to Daigo. So it's another layer of depth that Mortal Kombat is missing. I feel like they could learn a lot from Street Fighter looking back on its many years, and this wouldn't take away from what Mortal Kombat is. It really wouldn't take away from what it is, unless again what you're saying is Mortal Kombat is a scrub's paradise. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm not really sure what I'm going to put up tomorrow. I'm still thinking on it. But anyways guys, tune in. I'll have something up for you tomorrow. Peace.